Now, my 5-minute speech was meant to only be 1 minute. Now, you'll see a kind of slight concern at this time for someone like myself, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. So what I thought I'd do is I'd vaguely ramble a whole bunch of things that may be of interest to you, and hopefully they are, that will highlight a little bit about what Te Aro is about, but also, because I didn't prepare any slides or anything of kind of substance, I'm going to have to rely on your imagination a fair bit. So I apologise for that, but just kind of stick with me, because World Health Day and all of those good things, and what's happening at 331 Willis Street is actually not a bad story. So I thought I would kind of vaguely tell you a few stories, and if they all make sense, fantastic. I've served my time here well, and the reason I'm rambling a little bit now is that's how you make your 5-minute speech extend from 1 minute, so just bear with me with that as well. Just imagine if you, when you turn up to A&E, as we do sometimes, we might have grandchildren, we might have our own children, or we may be turning up ourselves, and the wait time is 8 hours. Now, apparently that is the target from the ministry of those who decide such things. 8 hours is a reasonable time for us to be waiting at A&E. The dilemma for us when we're waiting at A&E in varying states of disrepair, of which I'm sure a few of us have experienced that, and is not particularly helpful. Now, the reason that we're waiting 8 hours is a whole bunch of things, and I won't go into the intricacies of what kind of the public health sector is or isn't doing. I shall leave that for other people, whether of the kind of the red party variety, green, or something of the blue, to tell you about what is or isn't happening. Generally what happens is our people who would be normally at 331 Willis Street are basically camped out at A&E, because that's what they do. There's a whole bunch of society out there that don't have the money, the wherewithal, or the ability to kind of go and see their doctor. So what we did is we set up Te Aro about 20 odd years ago, way back when I wasn't around, with the sole purpose of helping people who are kind of the most disadvantaged in society to have access to pretty much the standard healthcare that you and I would expect when we go and see our own doctors. But what we did is, if you set up somewhere for people to come to who generally don't go to places like that, and you set up a whole bunch of doctors and nurses and all of those sorts of things, expecting people to kind of come along, what happens is they don't turn up. They go to where they know. Where they know is A&E. Hence, us waiting about 8 hours, usually on a Friday and Saturday night. Now, there is some other people who aren't down and outs who come from Courtney Place who then gravitate towards A&E for varying states of disrepair that they get put back together. That impacts a little bit on that 8 hours, but generally it's our people that are there. And then what we do is we have a couple of kind of landmark people out there that we try and kind of showcase, and Blanket Man served that purpose particularly well. Now, I don't know if many of you know that particular individual. He would spend most of his time sitting at the bottom of Tory Street and Courtney Place. Now, that was quite convenient because I was working in Tory Street at the time, so I used to spend quite a bit of time having a chat, or the best you can, with this particular character. Now, he made a whole bunch of choices throughout his life. Whether right or wrong, leave that for other people to kind of talk about whether that was right or wrong. But what happened is he ended up living on the street through choice. Now, what we then did is, rather than kind of try and convince people who are doing those sorts of things to not do those, we kind of started to offer a whole bunch of services around the likes of Blanket Man, and there's a whole bunch of other community out there who choose to do that. So what we do is we kind of set up a whole bunch of our doctors and nurses, give them the doctor and nurse bag and send them forth into the streets, into Central Park, into other places around our fine city, that these particular people who make those choices kind of congregate or literally live. And one of the things that you good folk have offered to do, particularly with your younger Rotarians, is to help us with a bit of a street count, to give us an idea of how many people live rough, because there's actually quite a few. So we've got the A&E thing, and you can imagine a whole bunch of people, kind of the Blanket Mans of this world, tragic death that kind of occurred when it did, but thank you, Mr. Gareth Morgan, for stepping in. One of the things that I noticed up on Mark's slides is about the kind of the fence at the top of the cliff mentality, because we could do a whole bunch of very good things with ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, as we do, and we've got a whole bunch of our colleagues who do kind of ambulance type things. For us, it's about preventative healthcare for the most disadvantaged, certainly in inner city Wellington. And rather than just kind of wait for some things to occur, what we did about 20, 25 years ago is some very good people had a vision. They said if we create a medical centre that was kind of okay enough for a whole bunch of good people to turn up to, but most importantly that we take what happens in a normal medical centre out to those individuals, that would be the way to go. Hence Te Aro starting. Ironically, it kind of operated out of the boot of a car for a period of time. We kind of wandered around the inner city of Wellington for a period of time, and then we kind of ended up in the 331 Willis Street location that we're currently at. Why we ended up there is a community group, the Central Baptist Church, said actually this is enough. We need to have a place for you to operate from. So they said, here is a building, completely fitted out for what you need, move yourself in there and away you go, which I think is an outstanding thing for a group of people to do. And they continue to offer us that at quite low rent. But when you're kind of an organisation that's got a lot to give, within the current kind of funding mechanisms of government, there is always more to do than the money that comes in. Now, all of you folk, I presume, are either business people or kind of public servants or a variation of those two, and it's never a good thing. It's kind of quite a short-sighted kind of view of the world. Having my own business, if you spend more than you earn, a kind of a bad thing happens at some stage. Now for Te Aro, we experienced all of those things. Little old Te Aro, kind of you spend lots and you kind of don't earn enough, and absolutely we hit the wall. And it's been an interesting journey, and I guess that's why I joined. Kind of people like me look for something positive to contribute to. And generally what happens is if something's going horribly wrong, then it's kind of, Darryl, can you come and help out? Now, for all of you who kind of do governance things or get offered governance things, always watch out for them. There's a whole bunch of really good people who've got a great story to tell. So do you mind if you just come and kind of give us a bit of advice and a bit of a help? Of which we do, don't we? Because that's the kind of folk we are. And then suddenly you find out, oh, do you mind just coming along to a few board meetings and giving us a bit of help? And then suddenly, oh, do you mind if you actually just hold one of those kind of roles on the board? And suddenly you're a trustee and chair. Well, that was me about 8 years ago. I don't know how it happened, but somewhere along the line, someone cunningly caught me out. Now, as a result of that, I signed up to the cause of what Te Aro is about. And thank you so much for what you folk are doing as well, because your contribution is quite significant. When I talked about our doctors and nurses literally heading out into the outdoors, the streets and the parks and all of the places they need to go, they can only do that through the ability to kind of take their laptops and cell phones, all the fancy gizmos that doctors and nurses also need, hooked up in real time to the patient files. You folk give us the ability to connect with what's called MedTech, which is the big fancy kind of IT system of all of our patient files. So in real time, our doctors and nurses, literally in Central Park on a wet, horrible, grotty day like today, are administering kind of doctor and nurse things to an individual or a group of people is because of what you folk gave us and enabled us to do. So in a very real way, you are enabling us to do that. Thank you so much. In a very real way, when it comes to A&E, we work quite closely with our colleagues there, and any of our folk who constantly keep appearing, what we do is we wrap a whole bunch of specific kind of services and support around them. Because we've got 1,500 patients on our patient list at the moment, kind of got room to grow to about 2,000, but with that group of people, we've got an opportunity to kind of work with them quite specifically. And 50% of our patient group have got mental health issues, and most of them have more than one. So for us, if we've got kind of one of the issues that's relatively catastrophic, most of our people have 2, 3, if not 4, what we call kind of complex medical and or mental health issues. So we kind of look after the most disadvantaged in the city of Wellington. What you folk are doing by supporting, I guess, the trustees and the trust and the doctors and nurse and admin support team that we've got at 331 and various other locations around town is making quite a tangible difference to the people in Wellington. If you want to go and see some of our folks, there's plenty of them around. Cuba Street, generally benefit days, not a pretty sight. So we work with a lot of the businesses who are there because our people, bless them, congregate there in varying states of disrepair. Work with the City Council to try and work out what they can and can't do to support them in that place. If you want to be a little bit scared, then when some of our folk are not taking their medication, which happens, if they're abusing alcohol or drugs or some other variation of that, that kind of happens, then when we as normal kind of citizens of Wellington encounter that, it's actually quite a scary and I guess quite an intimidating thing. So what we do with our team is we make sure that we're trying to head that off a little bit. So we have great support from the City Council. We have great support from our police colleagues. And we also have fantastic support with a whole bunch of other agencies who are doing fantastic work in Wellington. Downtown Community Ministries, or DCM, the soup kitchen folk, the night shelter folk, the people who look after the groups of people in all of the flats that are around, going through the renovation process. What we do is we stick to our knitting, which is high quality, low cost healthcare for the most disadvantaged in inner city Wellington. That's our tagline. What we do is we work really closely with all of those other groups who are doing fantastic work, and they might look after the housing aspects, they might look after their mental health aspects, they might look after specialist kind of medical things, feet or whatever it happens to be. So we work with them to deliver a holistic service, and then what we do is we do the doctor and nurse bit. So what we've tried to do is also front end that in our Wellington City community. We're probably one of the leading kind of inner city collaborative groups about holistic healthcare. So what you're also doing is not just supporting what's happening at 331, not just about that kind of outreach services, but you're also helping, I guess, a little agency to try and change their bigger system change, or the ecosystem of health service or the education provision of those in that particular state. So because we've got a couple of schools that are within our environment as well, Mount Cook in particular, we work quite closely with the schools and what's going on there. So there's a whole bunch of work with the youngsters and families associated with that. Big refugee service that we're supporting as well. So wrapped up is a whole bunch of really good things that we're attempting to do. Coming back to my thanks for today, and my 5 minutes I think is up, is just to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. What I'll do is next time is I promise to have a few slides that actually tell a bit more of a story. And the next time that you're in A&E and it's that 4 hour or 2 hour, or that, if you're in the back of an ambulance, it's very quick kind of response. In part that's because of the good work you're doing with Te Aro. If it's at 8 hours, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving me a call, then what I'll be able to do is I'll realise it's possibly some of our good folk, and what we'll do is we'll gather that up and we'll kind of do something about that. One of the things that is particularly encouraging is what Richard has done, and he's this whole event that's happening at the Roxy Theatre, and I think these flyers and bits and bobs on your tables. It's little things like that that do a couple of things for us. One, yes, absolutely, there's some cash, and that will always go to you contributing to the greater good of what we're about. Most importantly, it tells people, one, that our services exist. So if you know of folk or know of families or know of people who need to make use of pretty much what Te Aro is all about, fantastic, let them know. And then the final thing that an event like this does is it promotes the good work of what the team are doing down there at 331 and all those outreach services. Because without that kind of degree of visibility and the support that even just a congratulations and well done, as well as the funding support does, then it becomes difficult for organisations like us to exist. So in a very real way, thank you so much for what you're doing, and I'll be coming along to the Roxy event to represent Te Aro and to say another thank you there, but I certainly wanted to say thank you here today.